Where does the idea of a book come from? Many people ask me, how did you write your first book, your second book, your third book about? My first book was called Thoughtfully Ruthless. And when I was working at Amazon in a fashion team, I went around on my first day of work and I asked all the buyers, I asked everyone across all the teams, what does it take to be successful at Amazon? And I'll never forget the one shoe buyer saying to me, Val, you need to be ruthless. And I winced and I'm like, I don't want to be ruthless. I'm British. I'm not really ruthless. And she said to me, no, you need to be ruthless. You need to get used to disappointing people. You need to learn how to say no, and you just need to be ruthless. That stuck with me. And I have to say, there were times at Amazon where you did need to be ruthless because we were achieving so much. There were so many demands on our time. There were so many opportunities to grow our business in ways. We had so many resources and we had so much opportunity. We sponsored the Met Gala. It was incredible. But that idea of being ruthless was too much for me. And I knew we had to think of a different way of saying it's not just ruthless. And that's where the idea of being thoughtfully ruthless came from, because I knew that when I look back on all of the leaders I worked with, all the companies I worked with, when Xbox was failing, when Amazon was launching into new businesses in new industries and new markets, when I was working in mergers and acquisitions across Europe, I realized that it's not the competition. It's not even your technology. It's not what's going on in the outside world. It's really about how leaders lead. It's how thoughtfully ruthless you are, how intentional you are with time, energy, and resources. And that's what sets apart outstanding companies from mediocre or okay ones. And so that idea of being thoughtfully ruthless was an idea that came from a conversation. Then I wrote my first article in 2013, few weeks after I'd launched my business. And I'll tell you, it took 37 hours to write my first article. It was a 2-page white paper. Here's a snippet of it. And it was a special report called Thoughtfully Ruthless. And I sent it out, and I think I had 133 subscribers on my mailing list. And I emailed it out. And I was really surprised the feedback I got. And so I started talking about it more. I started going to conferences and events and talking about this idea of being thoughtfully ruthless. And then it kind of took a life of its own, and I created more concepts, and I worked with executive teams, and I spoke at events, and I ran workshops on unlocking time, energy, and resources with teams and increasing the valuation of companies by being thoughtfully ruthless. And so then I spoke to my mentor at the time, and I remember I was at his event, and there was this concept of you could go up and ask advice in front of the audience of my mentor and other consultants. And so I came up and I remember my voice was shaking, and I'm like, I think I've got an idea for a book, and it's called Being Thoughtfully Ruthless. I explained the concept to the audience at the time. My mentor said, that's a really good idea. And the people in the audience said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so then I pitched the book to a number of different publishers. And here is the book, Thoughtfully Ruthless. And so when people say to me, where did the idea come from? That's the backstory. And then I got a contract with Wiley, and they said to me, oh, we want you to write the book in 4 months. And 4 months, I'm calling my mentor and saying, they want me to write a book in 4 months. He's like, oh, you could write it in 3. Don't worry, sign the contract. And so I did, and Thoughtfully Ruthless was published. So people ask me, how did you write your book? How did you come up with the idea? And so that's the backstory. The reason I share that is because as you're thinking about increasing your digital footprint, your digital reputation, think about what you could write. Remember that first article I wrote? It took me 37 hours. The next article I wrote, I actually had a timer. Those of you who come to my strategy retreats and events know that I love this timer. So I said, okay, it took me 37 hours the first time. I'm going to write my next article in an hour. And I actually wrote it in 47 minutes. And I was so happy about it. And so from then on, whenever I write, I always set a timer, because it forces me to get the ideas from my head onto paper without overthinking too much. Now, this is all before ChatGPT and all of the AI tools. You had to speed up your editing, speed up your idea generation. I remember the first time that I wrote for Inc. magazine, and I had a column there for a number of years. They had this. It was an AI tool back then. They just didn't call it such, a way of formulating perfect headlines to catch attention. And so I was using some of those tools when I was writing for Inc. magazine. So there's all these tools you have available now to write that make it easier. So think about, what are some of the ideas and concepts and stories from your background, from your experience, that allows you to tell your stories, tell your unique stories. When you read Thoughtfully Ruthless, you'll see lots of stories from my clients, from my background, from when I was a teenager and I had my first company, age 15. There's lots of stories in here. And so think about, don't tell the same old stories. Don't tell the Uber, the NVIDIA, all of the commonly known stories. Think about what stories are unique to you and practice writing those. My name is Val Wright, and I'm an innovation and leadership expert. And this is 31 days of boosting your digital reputation. See you tomorrow for your next tip and your next idea.